So plant medicine popped up on my radar screen as more so as a way to enhance your life. I wasn't necessarily coming at it or looking at it from a healing standpoint, but more of a life upgrade. Of course, I had no idea what I was getting into. If you talk about yourself negatively, even saying things like, oh, I'm old, I'm sick, I'm depressed, I'm tired, you were essentially casting a spell and manifesting this into the world. So this idea of being aware of your thoughts and reprogramming your mind, and it's a practice that you have to do kind of on a daily basis, just like working out.
Just give me 30 seconds of your time. First off, a huge thank you for listening because you tuning into the show week after week means the world to me. And it's proof that this dream that started way back when I was just a boy in Possum Hollow is bigger than I ever could have imagined. And secondly, we're just getting started. So if you enjoy what we do here, please join the 20% of listeners that listen to this show regularly and follow us on this app. So here's the promise I'm going to make to you. I'm going to do everything I can to make this show as good as it possibly can, even better, now and into the future. I'm going to deliver the guests that you want to listen to. I'm going to continue telling stories and compilations about hunting, fishing, rivers, mountains, and all of the other things that you enjoy about this show. Listen, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for listening to this show because without you, none of the things that we're doing at Walker School of the Wild would be possible. Thank you. Garrett Renon, welcome to the Wild Lab, my brother. It's yeah, man. It's really a pleasure to have you on today and to talk about plant medicine, to talk about, maybe to talk a little bit about your podcast. The deeper you go, the weirder it gets. To talk about your role as a coach and as a ceremonial guide and a Shipibo style plant medicine practitioner. So tell me, Garrett, what's alive for you today, brother? What's alive for you today, my brother?
What's alive for me?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just enjoying life right now. I really am. I've been recently practicing a lot of gratitude. Very, very simple concept, but every morning waking up and practicing gratitude and being thankful for the life that I've carved out and built. When I think about it, I'm essentially living my dream life right now. So life is good.
Congrats for that. I mean, I said something something about this the other day to a friend of mine. I think it was like a meme or something that came up on Instagram, but it was something to the effect of 5 years ago you were dreaming of the life that you're living now. What will happen in 10 years or what will happen in the next 5 years, from now. And I think about that because, our paths and our stories are distinct, but, follow similar parallels. And we'll get into that a little bit. Um, but you like me, or I like you rather. Um, yeah, 5 years ago, I was dreaming of doing this. I was dreaming of writing the book that I want to write. I was dreaming of having a school. And I can only imagine what it'll be like in 10 years and 5 years from now. So it is really, really a blessing and truly a gift. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually did a video on that exact quote,
Or you did.
a while back, and, because I agree with everything you said, and it was also a way for me to remind myself to be present, because sometimes, we always it's a good trait to always want more, right? Like, I want to be a better version, I want to grow my
Hmm.
business and my practice, and so sometimes, at least speaking for myself, I get caught up in this goal that I may never reach, and then I gotta sometimes stop and say like, "Hey, 5 years ago, I would have given anything to be here, and I'm actually doing exactly what I wanted, and it may look slightly different, but I can't believe how much progress I've made." Um, so yeah, so I always think sometimes it's good to take a step back and just see how far you've come as opposed to always being concerned with future progress or how much further you still think you need to go.
No, totally, totally. It's something I think. I know that I struggle with or have struggled with. I know it's something that a lot of men in general struggle with as well. And I mean, part and parcel to our culture of always wanting more, always wanting to succeed more, and never. I mean, and when we harbor that mentality, we're never fully enough, right? Because there's always the goalpost keeps moving, right? We keep moving the goalpost. We get one thing, we're like, okay, that's cool, but now I want this. Okay, I get build a business. Okay, well now I want to make $200,000 a year. Okay, well now I want to make $1 million a year, or whatever it amounts to, right? The goalpost constantly keeps moving, and it's something that some of the people that I coach, I've said this a lot to them, which is to try or to remember to celebrate some of the small wins, celebrate the small things, right? Whether that's um, getting good feedback on a piece of writing that you're doing, or like getting a job, or whatever it happens to be, no matter how small it is, like celebrating it. Because when we do that, right? Like if we don't do that, our brain, and we're always like moving the goalpost and always, never going to be satisfied until the next thing, and the next thing never comes, right? That like signals to our brain, um, we don't get the dopamine rush, we don't get the serotonin rush when we actually accomplish something, and so it signals to our brain that no, we're actually not enough, and we actually need more, we need more, we need more. Whereas when we celebrate even like the smallest of things, and I don't mean by like having a parade or like, whatever. But like, even if it's just, I don't know, giving yourself a treat, or a cookie, or taking yourself out for a movie, or something simple, of a small win that like feeds our brains, and it feeds our brains serotonin, so that we know, okay, this was a good thing. I want to reproduce this, and all of those small wins continually stack up to bigger and bigger ones. I mean, it's the same philosophy that these tech giants use for our phones and for the internet to keep us coming back for more, right? Is giving us those constant feeds. So like, I'm always trying to think, okay, and remind myself to feed, to give myself those same signals, those same feeds, so that I can reproduce some of the same wins. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure, and yeah, I love that, and that's a lot about what I've been thinking about and working on recently. Because on one aspect, we do need to constantly move that goalpost forward because that's what
Hmm.
keeps us hungry and that's what keeps us striving. But yeah, everything comes down to balance, and if you don't stop and smell the roses every now and then and congratulate yourself for those small wins, and then yeah, you become out of balance. But it's like, but you can't get too comfortable, celebrating
Yeah.
everything. But so, um, yeah, I love that balance, and it's this idea of just being aware and present of your accomplishments and your thoughts is been huge for me because I've realized I saw somewhere, I don't know how true it is, but I believe it's pretty true that they say we have anywhere between 10,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day.
Mm. Yeah.
And
I have no idea. That sounds about right, though.
yeah, and most of them are in your subconscious, and so and then think about how often, if you're not aware, that your thoughts might be negative. And so this idea of kind of being aware of your thoughts and reprogramming your mind, and it's a practice that you have to do kind of on a
Hmm.
daily basis, just like working out physically. You have to, if you just go to the gym or work out one time once a month, you're gonna it's better than nothing, but that's not gonna be overall, that's not gonna give you much progress. Whereas if you were to go 3, 4, 5 days a week. And so I'm just kind of thinking about the same thing with a mental practice of
Hmm.
constantly being aware of your thoughts and your goals and your mindset and stuff like.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm curious though, man. How have you gotten to this place, right? Because we met each other. I don't know when did we meet? Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah. You haven't all, and it's a really good place, and I'm really happy to see where you are right now, and to hear you say, you've been practicing gratitude, and really grateful for where you are. Um, maybe tell listeners a little bit about your story, a little bit about how you, because you haven't always been, a plant medicine practitioner, a coach, and a ceremony guide. I mean, you worked in the military industrial complex for a while, and then owned a lot of gyms, as I recall. So why don't you walk folks through a little bit of like how you got to this place from where you are right now?
Yeah, so I've lived what feels like several different lives. I graduated college with a mechanical engineering degree, and then, like you mentioned, I went to work for the Department of Defense, and we were doing weapons effects testing, which sounds cool, and in some ways it was, but it actually opened up my eyes to a lot of things. One in particular, how inefficient the government is, and the other aspect is I actually had a slight my I guess maybe my first spiritual awakening during that time. I had
Mm,
very, growing up, I had almost zero spirituality, let's call it. I always just thought that was a bunch of hippie nonsense. And um but when I was working for the government, I remember one time we were doing this particular test where we were working we were testing different case and explosive combinations for the Hellfire missile,
mm,
which, if you know anything about that, that is the missile that is on many of the drones. And this was back in like 2005, 2006, 2007. So a lot of drone strikes were happening during this time.
mhm,
And we had this building that was 3, 4 feet thick concrete building with 3/4 inch steel. And then they would string up this explosive, and then they would set it off, and then they would test the pressure and all that kind of stuff. But the structure could take about 30 tests before it had to be retrofitted and repaired. And so it was a brand new test series. So everything was new. And I remember going in there after the first bomb went off, and I was just looking at the holes punched through the steel and the wall, and looking at these balls of shrapnel on the ground. And then I just was like, "Oh my god!" Like, we are using all this brain power and all this energy to figure out more efficient ways to kill people.
mm, mhm,
And that was kind of the first uh, spiritual awakening I had. But then I also just did not like the job for other reasons. And then I so I worked there for about 7 years, and then I transitioned, opening up a gym. During that, I've always been into fitness. I've loved fitness. I've always been a coach and a personal trainer and group fitness instructor. And I was doing triathlons at the time. And then, so I just, fitness has kind of always been one of my passions.
mhm,
And then I transferred, and I opened up a gym, and I ran that for about 7 years. And that's right around the time when I discovered plant medicine.
mhm,
And so I discovered plant medicine as a way, because while being in the fitness industry, I've always been obsessed with human potential. Like, how can we
mm,
be better versions of ourselves, better, stronger, faster, more efficient? And so plant medicine popped up on my radar screen as more so as a way to enhance your life. I wasn't necessarily coming at it or looking at it from a healing standpoint, but more of a life
mhm,
upgrade. Of course, I had no idea what I was getting into.
mhm,
Um, Discovered the medicine, which, is a whole story into itself. Maybe we can get into that.
mhm,
But I then, when I experienced it, I realized it was a missing component in my life. I felt at that point I was very strong physically, very strong mentally, but had no spiritual practice. And so I've realized that we kind of live on three planes of consciousness: the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual or energetic plane. And so I felt like, okay, I need to have some energetic spiritual practices in my life. Long story short, shortly after my first or initial plant medicine experience, my whole life came crumbling down and I lost
Mm,
everything. I was running a gym. I was part of a franchise at the time, and certain things happened, and all of a sudden lawsuits were being thrown around, and I got sued and had to file for bankruptcy and got a lost got a divorce, lost my gym, lost all my assets, lost everything, and completely hit rock bottom.
mhm,
And it was definitely hard, and I went through a very hard time for about 3 years. But this was also the time when plant medicines really started to emerge in my life, and I felt like,
mhm,
yeah, I always look at things from a positive experience, and what I realized was the path I was on, I was out of alignment,
mhm,
who I should be or where I should be going. And sometimes the reality of the universe is that it can be it your old life has to die
yep,
for your new life to emerge.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. But so can we just pause on that just for a second? How did you, because I think this is something that so many, especially, well, like, just so many people in general, but, how did you realize, or what signaled to you that you were out of alignment? I mean, was it the fact that, like, your whole world came crashing down? But the way you answered it made it seem like there was something else.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it was just a feeling. I've always, as I was going through my life during that time in the gym, there just always felt a piece that was missing, and I really never knew what it was.
Mm,
All I can explain is I didn't feel whole.
mhm,
And so I think that's why I was searching plant medicine out, even though I didn't even realize I was searching it out. I had this call to it, but it wasn't overly strong, and I was just more curious than anything. But I just kind of kept getting pulled into it, and then when I had an experience, then I just felt like, oh, this whole world opened up to me, and it completely changed the way I saw everything.
mhm,
And because, like I said, I not only was it a missing component, but I didn't even necessarily believe in like this spiritual aspect or
mhm.
energies or spirit guides or whatever you want to
Right.
it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just manifesting all these things, and it
Mhm,
just sounded like nonsense to me.
mhm,
And and so yeah, when I had, it was just more of I guess I can say it was just more of a feeling of feeling
mhm,
incomplete. And then when I did it, I felt like, oh, there's this world that I have very little experience in, that I just know that I need to develop myself more.
mhm. And it was the spiritual part of yourself that you wanna develop specifically, right? Because as
Yes.
you said, the physical and the mental, well, you didn't say the mental necessarily, but definitely the physical, you've always been super fit. And it was the spiritual side that you wanted to develop, that you needed to develop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so what'd you do? Like, what did that look like?
Well, so that started, so I my plant medicine experience was with ayahuasca, and it was within ayahuasca within the Shipibo tradition, which I just kind of fell into this tradition. Again, I had no idea what I was looking for. I knew I wanted to do ayahuasca, but I barely knew what that was. And I had no idea that there were different traditions or anything. And this is where, it gets fascinating, where you wonder how much free will we actually have sometimes. Like, I think there's a balance, but sometimes you realize that w- it seems that when your life is on the right track, things just happen to you, and that they were going to happen no matter what. It's
Mhm,
like, I don't know if I chose ayahuasca or ayahuasca chose me. And
mhm,
um so that was my first experience, was with the plant medicine, and that opened up a whole world of realizing, one, that it was about healing. It's much more than that, but there was this whole component of healing yourself energetically and kind of restructuring yourself energetically, which I was not expecting. And I also, I guess one of the big shifts for me was discovering the actual intelligence. within plant medicine, particularly ayahuasca. So at the time going into it, I was pretty mainstream science in the sense that what science tells you happens when you take ayahuasca or mushrooms is they will tell you that you are being poisoned and that this poisoning is will make your neurons fire chaotically or out of order, and then this is what produces hallucinations, and um and that's essentially what they tell you it happens, right? That's the quote unquote drug, mainstream drug aspect of plant medicine. And I essentially thought that's what was happening, but I just heard so many good experiences that I thought it was still worth a try. Then when I experienced it, I realized like, oh, it is not that. Like this is actually alive and there's an entity, and people that have ever experienced ayahuasca will often call ayahuasca the grandmother.
Mhm.
And then there are other plant spirits that are involved in the ceremony, particularly in Shipibo style ceremonies. And I started having an interaction with these intelligences, um and it just made me realize, so that was kind of one of the first things where it made me realize like, oh, this was not what I thought it was. It's actually like there's something bigger here. And then so that kind of opened up my ideas of religions or whatever, that maybe there is actually something there, that there is this intelligence
Mhm.
in nature, in an energetic intelligence that I had no idea. And so that was like kind of the first thing that opened my eyes to uh the spirit world or the spirit realm.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's there's the different ways in which we talk about plant intelligence, and I think, um, you know, talking to you or talking to somebody who's a plant medicine practitioner is going to talk very differently than like the botanist that I'm going to have on in a couple days talking about plant medicine or sorry, plant intelligence. But I think both speak to um, a very real truth that I've found in my life is in that which is that I mean there is an intelligence in nature that is outside of human, but it is also inside of humans as well, right? It is both an outside and an inward intelligence that we can observe, but also witness inside of us. I'm curious when you're talking about you've been talking a lot about plant intelligence and um, what you have learned from taking ayahuasca in general. But you went through a more traditional Shipibo year-long apprenticeship with ayahuasca or with ayuma, which is a tree in the Amazonian jungle. I'm curious. I know you've talked about this in other places. I'm curious if you could tell some listeners what that entails, what an apprenticeship, what a dieta entails, and how that's different from maybe just drinking ayahuasca, at a center or someplace, and also, like, what you learned about plant intelligence, because I know that's a big question. I know those are 2 different questions, but, I'm really good at those multi-pronged questions for better, for worse. But, yeah, what you learned through that process, what you learned from the plants, what you learned about yourself. I don't know, break it down for us a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, and feel free to stop me at any time because these are big questions, so
Yeah.
I can just talk about it for nonstop. So, um, yeah, well, so going down, so when I did ayahuasca, I just thought it was going to be a one time thing, maybe a couple times in my life, and each time I did a ceremony weekend, I always felt kind of called to go back, and so there's kind of several levels to a Shipibo style ayahuasca ceremony, and the most basic level is just a participant. You just show up, you have your intentions, and you do the thing. And that's very good, and that's what most people do, and it's for what most people don't necessarily need any more than that. Um, but then I realized as I kept getting called back that there was a thing called sama, or dieta, which I will probably use those words interchangeably. They essentially mean the same thing. So just so the listeners know, those 2 words essentially mean the same thing. And so what that is it's a process of deepening a relationship with another plant spirit. So there are so many aspects of Shipibo style medicine that absolutely blew my mind. And one of them is this idea of other plant spirits being involved in the ceremony.
Mhm,
So everyone, for the most part, knows about ayahuasca and the grandmother spirit. What I say is, in a Shipibo style ceremony, ayahuasca is the star, but there's a whole cast of characters that are behind the scenes helping make things happen, and these are other plant spirits. And so the Shipibo, they developed this process of how you create a relationship with a different plant spirit, and you can do that. There are many reasons why you could do this. One aspect could be from a healing, or let's just say life upgrade standpoint. It's a lot like going to the doctor's office.
mhm,
So let's say you have some traumas or some issues and you want to go deeper and you need some more time. You'd go down to the jungle, you'd sit with a practitioner and they would talk to you and then they would say, okay, I think you should do a plant called ahosacha for 2 weeks.
mhm,
And so during the and then that would be prescribed to you. That's your sama, that's your dieta. And during that time, you're on a very restrictive diet. Very traditional is fish, plantains, rice, potatoes, maybe some bananas, and that's essentially it. No other plant material, no salt, no sex, no um very little input.
mhm,
You can have all the output you want. You can draw, you can write, you can paint, you can sing, but you're the idea is that while you minimize all your input, and then you're also taking the plant over that 10 days or 2 weeks. You may take it every day, you may take it for 5 days. That all depends, but you
mhm,
drink that usually in a tea form or however, and then you are developing this relationship with the plant spirit, and so again, that can help you uh, overcome traumas or issues. It can, and then also if you're successful with this, then you have this essentially plant spirit or ally for the rest of your life.
mhm,
And it's a lot like growing a plant. You When you open up the diet, it's like a seed gets planted, and then through the sama process, and then after the ceremony is closed, if you continue to work on it and you continue to meditate and do all the things, that spirit will continue to grow, and it will help it will just help you. Like I said, it's a guide,
mhm,
and it's an ally. So so that that so that process of the sama opened up a whole new world of like, okay, now there's these other plants that you can kind of go deeper and learn more about the Shipibo style world. And then
well, can I just stop you just for 1 second there? Just to, because I just wanna echo one thing that you're saying, right? And I think it's important, we just talked before we jumped on air, um, that is actually came from one of these from a Sama, about a week or so ago. But I think for me, like, the way I really like to think about it is that, like, the ayahuasca is like the general practitioner, as you said, it's like going to the doctor, right? And then the other plant that you're taking at the time is more like a specialist. So if you have
yeah.
like, like a ear, nose, and throat doctor or an ontologist or whatever, like some a specific gonna look at or attack a specific thing that's going on with you, right? And I think yeah, I'm sure you'll get into this a little bit with your own year-long diet, but I know for me, it's really interesting the ways that when we get rid of all of those inputs, as you said, when we stop consuming sex and, television and salt and sugar and high fat, substances, it's really I talk about this all the time when it comes to hunting or when it comes to anything, our attunement to things becomes exponentially heightened. and it's not a pleasant it's really the sama is not generally a pleasant experience, at least with the lack of consumption, but the levels of attunement that I think we reach are exponential, and I mean, is one of the reasons why, reaching those is it's really important to do that, to reach those levels of attunement that are necessary to communicate with whatever plant that it is that you're taking, right?
Yeah, no, that's well said. And in fact, one of the things I've learned about this is that the plants and nature are speaking to us all the time, but we can't hear it because we are so distracted in our modern society
Mhm,
with social media and music and stress from our job, and we're out of rhythm with our lights and all the things. And so um that's one of the reasons that we have to strip away everything so we can actually hear nature speaking to us, like our ancestors. I mean, this is where they acquired all knowledge, essentially, was from nature, all the plants.
mhm,
I mean, we have this, one of the biggest mysteries is where did intelligence come from? How do
mm,
we, writing, mathematics, all that kind of stuff? And I mean, at least some of it came from nature. I mean, one of
mhm,
the biggest mysteries, not to get too sidetracked, was, how do they even how did they come up with ayahuasca? It's two different
mhm,
plants in a jungle of 40 to 80,000 different plant species. Many plants are poisonous, and um, how do they know what to combine? The mainstream science will tell you it's trial and error, but that's, BS, as you know. And you would have to know what you're looking for.
mhm,
So yeah, and then I wanted to talk about, you had a very good way of talking about the plants being specialist, and that
mm,
was a beautiful way to put it. And in fact, what I call it is what essentially goes on in a Shipibo style ceremony is what I call spiritual herbalism.
mm,
And so, like, if you think about herbalism in the physical world, if you go and sit down with an herbalist, they're going to ask you, what's going on? Why are you here? And then you're going to give them a list of symptoms or issues, and then they're going to say, yeah, you should drink dandelion tea for 3 days, and take this and take that, and they give you a prescription of certain plants that you're going to consume. Well, the same thing, if you're familiar with hermetic principles, as above, so below. Well, the same thing occurs on an energetic level. And so what these Shipibo style practitioners do is, the ayahuasca is the container and the connection to the spirit world. And then they call in the different energies of particular plants to specialize, to work, to get specialized work done on that person. So maybe if you're suffering from a broken heart, we talk, you know, there's a plant called morosa, which is very good for heart. It's very loving, it's very caressing, it's very feminine. It can very, if you have a broken heart, morosa is good. It's also good for a lot of other things. Um, uh,
I just told you I just died it a couple weeks ago, and it also has some very strong boundaries.
yes.
Um, yeah.
And I have a relationship with lavender, and so I will call that in to help. If you think about lavender, it's very calming, it's very soothing. People use it for sleep. And then there are other plants that can be good for cleaning and removing energies. And then there could be plants that are good for protecting or centering people. So, um, those are all the, so that's, so the way when you talked about the plants being specialists, that was a perfect analogy. And so that essentially is why you diet a particular plant, is to get some specialized healing. And then it's also cool because you'll start to meet the personality. Like you said, morosa has strong boundaries, and just like me and you are different, each plant species is slightly different. They have completely different personalities, so it's really cool to develop this relationship with them. Anyway, so I did my first sama back in, I think, 2017, and had a whole death and rebirth scenario there. And this was actually right before my whole life got
Mm, mhm,
torn apart, and which ironically, I had a whole death and life rebirth experience a month before all this happened. And so I just started, I still didn't know I was going to go down the practitioner route, but I had the opportunity to work with some people who were running ayahuasca ceremonies. And so I was helping in ceremony and I was continuing to do samas here and there. And then I decided, like, I want to go all in. I
mhm,
want to, um, I'm really feeling called to leading ceremonies. And so after about 5 years of working in ayahuasca, I decided to take the plunge and do what they an apprenticeship. And so the teacher I work with out of Niue Rao, Ricardo Amaringo, he requires a year-long dieta in order to kind of get the blessing to begin running ceremonies on your own, which
mhm,
is very intense as you could imagine. I know you've
mhm,
experienced some and maybe you've even done some longer ones, but a year is no joke,
mhm,
especially the no salt. I got really sick. I lost like 40 pounds. I didn't have 40 pounds to lose and completely physically just destroyed.
mhm,
But after going through that, I realized that it's so necessary because it's like it's a true initiation and a true purification process. And not that I am pure by any stretch of the imagination, but you're you're working through a lot of your stuff and going through cleaning out your energy, centering, creating a relationship with plants and trees before you have any business running ceremonies, right?
mhm,
It's like, make sure you walk through the desert first before you start
mhm.
guiding people through the desert.
Yeah, and I would say maybe walk through the desert naked and starving and cold and afraid for a long time before you can do that, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so, yeah, so I did my year-long sama with a tree called Ayauma, which is a very powerful, and respected tree, and it was super interesting because this is another example of how much of our life do we choose and how much is chosen
Mhm,
for you, because my intention for the year, and this is what most people do, is over the course of the year, you may diet several things. Um, because when I talked about it earlier as being spiritual herbalism, well, every time you diet a plant, especially from a practitioner standpoint, that's another tool on your tool belt. So you would think like, okay, if I'm going to diet a year and I'll do 5 plants and trees over that year, not only did I go through my initiation purification process, but now I got 5 new shiny tools that I can use.
mhm,
So that's what most people do. And that's what I was planning on doing. But I started with Ayauma. I felt called to it, but that was kind of about it. I thought I was going to do it for about 3 or 4 months and then move on to something else. And um, in that process, I'd overheard someone talking about these people called Ayumeros. And so my ears perked up and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, I don't know much about it, but they are people who work solely with Ayuma. And now that piqued my interest for 2 reasons. One, for the reasons I just mentioned, I was like, well, why would anyone specialize with one tree? And obviously I was doing Ayuma. And so I was like, do you know any more about this? And he was like, no, I don't. And so I broke protocol and I searched online to look for
mm,
anything about Ayumeros. And I found one reference in a book that I had. I went to the book, it was in the index. I go to the page and there's nothing there. Um, and so I did what you're supposed to do. Well, you ask your plant, right? So I asked Ayuma, like, tell me about these Ayumeros. And the message I essentially got was, um, if you do me for a year, I will show you.
mm,
And so I was like, okay, I'm in, right? Like this sounds pretty interesting. And um, this is where it starts to sound a little crazy, and maybe I even sound egotistical, but whatever. This is my experience. Um, I so one of the messages I got, so I made the commitment then to do Iuma for a whole year.
Mm,
And when I did that, my relationship with Ayauma completely changed. It opened up in a whole different way. And so it was telling me that these Ayumetos were these like ancient warrior shaman type people who were, kind of similar to like what we might think of like Jedi, and
mhm,
that they essentially have become extinct, that nobody um that they're not really around anymore. And it was telling me, it was like, you are going to help bring this energy back, that the Ayumetos are needed now more than ever. And like I said, sounds crazy, but this is my experience. And and so yeah, so I start getting, lessons and downloads, and it keeps just opening up more and more. Um and when I fast forward to a year, and I close my Iuma diet, and I go outside of the Maloka, and I start singing to Iuma. I just start calling it in and doing my kind of my ritual with it. And it opened up in this way that I've never experienced anything in my life. And I just felt this power and this whole universe open up to me. And immediately I was like, oh, I get it. I 100% get why people would dedicate their life to solely working with this tree, because I've never felt anything like this.
mhm,
And so it was basically like, all right, you are now, like, now the path of the Ayumeto begins, right? And so um I I probably will diet other plants in the future, but Ayauma is the focal point of my medicine. And when I look at my energetic medicine, I see this big, powerful tree of Ayauma, and then I see all my other plants kind of around it and
mhm.
supported by it. But um, I consider myself an Ayumeto, and yeah, so I'm just all about that. It's a very strong warrior, masculine, energetic, grounded tree.
Mhm. So, let me just recap this just for a little bit. Um, no, but so for a year, right, you went without salt, without sugar, basically ate fish, plantains, maybe rice, right, for a whole year and didn't consume television, media, or anything, maybe tiny little bit, but
Yeah,
largely not to any extent,
right.
correct? Yeah. And also, I mean, were you allowed to touch people? No. So no touching people, not shaking hands, not hugging, not anything like that, right? For a whole entire year.
Right. I mean, I did touch people in the sense that I was also assisting in ceremony. So sometimes I might have to like help someone to a bathroom and stuff like that. I mean, some people, yeah, but for the most part, I didn't touch people. I mean, I think some people get a little carried away with that idea of like no touching. Because they think like there's an energetic transfer, and there is. But I mean, there were times where like maybe I shook someone's hand because I met them,
Sure,
and
sure.
I'm just not gonna be like, I can't shake your hand. It's just not in
No,
my
I get it.
nature.
I no, I get it. I just wanted to paint the picture for folks because, yeah, I mean, I haven't done a year, but I've done some pretty long diets, and that last part, I mean, the salt is very difficult. The salt is
Mhm.
no joke, but the no touching is also very difficult. And so I just wanted to paint that picture for people. And you called it an initiation, and I mean that's something that listeners to this program and people that I work with through our school know very well. In any initiation, there's life lessons to be learned, right? So, what did you learn? I mean, from dieting Ioma for a year and that large sacrifice that you did, What did you learn? What did you take away from
That's a good question. I mean, I took a lot from it. Man, I should have actually prepared and thought about this is probably an obvious question you were going to ask me. Um, I think some of the lessons, some of the lessons I learned, I call them no shit Sherlock lessons. Were like the biggest lessons are oftentimes the most simple, but they come to you in a way of like, oh man, now I truly understand it. Um, I mean, some of the things I learned was around running ceremonies, the energetic process, also just the holistic approach of kind of what I was searching in the first place was like the strong being strong physically, being strong mentally, and being strong spiritually is such a huge component no matter what you do, right? We operate on these three levels of consciousness, and so that's one of my goals and focuses as a coach and a practitioner is to bring that holistic path because I feel like that is missing. I feel like there are people who are like me in the past, maybe very good in the fitness realm, but lack the spiritual
Mhm,
side. I know people who are very strong spiritually, but kind of neglect their body and are not as strong in their mind as they should. And so that was a big lesson for me, which is a lesson I kind of already knew, but just to like to be the total package, to walk the walk and to do
mhm,
the thing. I also learned a lot about the power of the mind and how important it is to be conscious for the most part of your thoughts, right? And how you can and how the things you say and the words you speak that matters way more than we think.
mhm,
So, if you talk about yourself negatively, even saying things like, "Oh, I'm old, I'm sick, I'm depressed, I'm tired," you were essentially casting a spell and
mhm,
on yourself and manifesting this into the world. Now, saying it once or twice, not necessarily a big deal, but like we talked earlier, we have 10 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And
mhm,
how often are you having these getting stuck in these negative loops?
mhm,
I still catch myself having negative loops all the
mhm.
time. Like just the other day, I think I probably was in a 45-minute fake fight with somebody, right? Like an argument of like, I'm imagining I'm saying this and I was going to respond with that. And then it's like, whoa, what am I doing? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, um, those were some of like the big lessons that I've learned. I mean, there's probably so much more, maybe more will come to me, but it's for me, it's that. It's just like mind, body, spirit is everything.
Yeah, I mean, it also I'm gonna echo something you said to me, probably well, I guess it was like 3 years ago now, probably, when I was starting my long diet, and I asked you I think I asked you I don't remember my exact question, but I asked you for advice, or, some advice on, like, how I should handle it, what should I do, and things like that, and one of the things you told me was, I don't remember your exact words, but one of the things that you told me was um, to cherish the stillness and to really appreciate it because it's not something that we get a whole lot in life anymore, right? Um, and I think you've hinted at this a number of times, and I know you talk about this in a lot of places. But you hinted at this with, not having input and being and also dieting one plant, being the person who excels at one punch as opposed to knows 50, marginally well or whatever the Bruce Lee thing is, right? But in our society in this day and age, at least Western society and Western American society, um, so many of us are distracted, so many of us are fragmented, and whether or not, you talk about the 3 pillars, physical, mental, and spiritual or energetic, right? We may be fragmented in those areas, but we're also our attunement is also just wildly fragmented in a lot of ways, and I would imagine focusing in on one I mean, let's let's be real. Some people listening to this might think it's just crazy woo talk that we're talking here right now, but like focusing in on one plant for an entire year and that and developing a relationship with a spiritual and like as I know it to be very real relationship that we develop with these plants for the course of a year as opposed to doing 5. I would imagine that taught you a great deal about um, attention, about being within yourself, about being whole, perhaps about being stillness as well. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. And at the same time, I do know that, like, based on some of the things you've told me and some of the things I've heard you say in other places, that this is something that you've learned.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're pretty good. That was, as you were saying that actually was one of the biggest lessons was that specialization, and, so I was thinking as you were talking about that, it made me think of, like, a jack of all trades is a
Hmm.
master of none. Yeah, go focusing on Ayahuasca for a whole year, which breaks that paradigm, but realizing that there's a lot of value in slowing down and developing intimate relationships and and going on a pursuit of mastery, right? Like, because we in our society we do get caught up with accolades and stickers, and we want to be like, oh, I've dieted 25 different plants and trees, look at how
Hmm.
cool I am. And I'm like, yeah, but you have a surface level relationship understanding with all 25, what's better, or a very strong intimate depth relationship with a particular with one or two things. And
Hmm.
um, I mean, to each their own, and everyone's journey is different. But I do think that in our modern world of instant gratification and short attention spans, that there is we need to come back to slowing things down and um maybe specializing or mastering things a little bit more and looking for depth, not breadth.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a huge that I mean, that actually was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, so thank you for helping me remember that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're welcome, and when you told me that whatever it was 3 years ago, I think it was I really heard it, and I really listened to it, and, as you said, it's a no shit Sherlock thing, I knew that, and I needed somebody else to tell me that, right,
Yeah,
at the same time, and so I appreciate that, and I think, like you said, there's so many different ways in which in our world today where all of us, men and women alike, are completely fragmented. I mean, if you look at I I I think you're in a relationship, but I think, so many people are not, and so many people who are not are on the dating apps, right? And they're dating 5, 10, 15 people at a time or whatever it is, or even like just 3 or whatever. But I don't know. I like one of the things that I've learned from from samas, from dietas that I've applied to my own life, right? And especially like when it comes to dating or when it comes to relationships, because that's really what it is a relationship between you and a plant, is two things. One, you just mentioned, right? Which is to develop that relationship with depth, not breadth, one plant, or in this case, with one person, right? And then the other thing that I've learned from some of my own dietas in the past, and even this most recent one that I had, is that uh, people like plants, like clarity, and they like it when you are all in on the relationship. They like it when a man is all in on the relationship. And by that I don't mean like being a simp or like, whatever, fawning over things, but like being very sure and very clear. Yes, I am here. This is what I want. I am with you now, right? And not with 5 other people, 3 other people, whatever it amounts to, right? Because that amount of clarity and that amount of steadfastness, I mean, for plants and people alike, it provides safety and it provides like a healthy container to allow, like if you said, we're developing a small tree or a sapling or whatever, to develop that sapling of a relationship, whether it's with an energetic one in an ayahuasca or a dieta, or whether like it's a very real, dating relationship one with a romantic partner. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure, and I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying is, yeah, we have become so fragmented and scattered, and it's just kind of the way our society is structured, and, is that purposeful or not? That's a whole other discussion, but
Mhm,
what that does is being scattered, it takes away from developing yourself and being on your true path, right? It's like if you try to be everywhere, then you can't be anywhere. And so this idea of choosing a path and removing external things and focusing, like, I think, yeah, focus is the word, right?
mhm,
Like, what people nowadays have a hard time focusing on anything, and it seems like I'm also a fan of anybody who, like, of successful people, and
mm,
all successful people are highly focused and highly dedicated to a few specific things,
mhm,
and they go all in. Now we can argue, how much balance do you need and this and that, but, if you look at certain professional athletes or anybody that you highly respect, most likely they're known for one or two things. and
mhm.
and so that, yeah, I think that is so important to focus and, um yeah, I mean, it's well said.
Well, and Garrett, I know it well because it's something that I struggle with in my own life. To be quite honest with you, it's 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 an area that I'm working on currently because I do a million different things. I'm a college professor. I have this podcast. I'm you know wilderness guide and Walker School of the Wild. So I'm doing a lot of different things, although I see them all as the same thing, right? I see them all as helping people similar to what you're talking about, reach their highest potential, find their path, beyond their path, and helping walk people across through initiatory rites of passage. And with that said, I know you have a new program, right? For something similar to that. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but
Yeah, I do. When is this coming out, by the way?
I don't know. I think probably sometime this month. So this is January, sometime in the January, or at the latest early February. Yeah.
Okay, well, I do have a 90-day program that I'm starting, which in about 2 weeks. Um, but this is gonna be an ongoing program that I did my initial one, back in September, and we wrapped up in December, and it was a very successful program, and this program is essentially kind of accumulation of all the things I've learned over my life, but it's a whole mind, body, spirit program of 90 days, and it's broken up into 5 different segments. And and it's also based a lot of what I've learned off of the Sama process and um and plant medicine world. And so basically the first section is about building the foundation. The second section is about stripping away a lot of the inputs so that we can so that's kind of the heavy influence from the Sama world. And then the third phase is then about picking one or two aspects, and it could be a creative aspect, it could be a physical pursuit, it could be a business aspect, and then going all in as much as you can.
Mhm,
And then the fourth section is kind of that, but a little bit more amplified. And then the final section, we do a 48-hour fast,
mm,
which is much like a Sama. You're supposed to isolate,
mhm.
and it's more than just fasting from food, fasting from everything as much as possible.
Is it a
And
water fast or is it a dry fast?
it's a dry. You can have water,
Okay,
um, but that's essentially it. Um, the fasting component. I mean, I'm a big fan of fasting.
for
This,
sure.
that is. I would say, a small part of what this program is. That was more of just like kind of a little bit of an initiation challenge aspect. I would
Mhm,
say the meat of everything is before
mhm,
that. But yeah, it's really about making people aware, and there's a little bit of a physical component. So you're encouraged to daily move daily, take care of your environment, make your bed, things like that, read a little bit every day, touch the ground, meditate. But it's structured in a way where that I understand people have lives to live. And so no one's expected to be perfect. We will never be perfect, but it's intended to like make you aware of the habits and patterns and daily actions that you're doing. And then like we just talked about, where are you losing, where are you inefficient with your time and your energy,
mhm,
just this
mhm,
full awareness. And so then we can start to focus and grow. And I mean, it's an accumulation of the 10 years of plant medicine work I've been doing, plus the 15 years of fitness industry work I've been doing. So
mm,
really excited for that. And so yeah, so that's going to launch here in a couple weeks. I'm right now it's a live course, meaning
mhm.
I'm working on it with people, but I am thinking about possibly having it open anytime. And then, if you're not in part of a live class, you'll just get the recordings of the calls and stuff like that.
Right on. No, it sounds super important, man, and, like, everybody who listens to this podcast knows, I think initiations or the lack of them is truly detrimental to our society, to men, to women, to, our structures and institutions, so I appreciate and I thank you for, combining all of your knowledge together into a very meaningful one, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, listen, Garrett, I wanna be respectful of your time, and my dog is letting me know it's time for him to go outside here soon, but I wanna 2 things. One, I wanna say to you, like, we've been talking for years about getting you out hunting, man, and I would still love to make that happen sometime, down in California, man, make whether we do a deer hunt or a bear hunt or something like that, I'd love to make that happen. So let's talk offline about that. But secondly, I wanna give you the last word. If there's anything that you want to leave folks with, leave listeners with this podcast about plant medicine or about the importance of focus. Yeah, what would you say to our listeners?
First, I do want to make the hunting thing happen. Yeah, that is a huge, it's been a goal of mine for a while. And I think I'm now in a place where I can start to carve out some time for that. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Um, yeah, one of the what I would love to leave everyone with is, obviously I'm a big proponent of plant medicine, but I want to leave people with some things to think about, because I don't that doesn't mean I think you should just take plant
Mm,
medicine. Like not all plant
mhm,
medicine is necessarily created equal, and more
mhm,
importantly, not all practitioners are
mm,
created equal.
mhm,
And this is very important, and something, another aspect of what I've learned on my journey of how important, like, all the training that I had to go through and why. Because um the best analogy I can use is plant medicine is like fire.
mm,
And fire can keep you warm, it can provide light, it can cook your food, it can protect you, but it can also, if not properly contained or controlled, can burn your house down, an entire neighborhood, an entire
mhm,
city, or forest. And so
mhm,
um what I've realized is, especially in our modern society, is most people, because we've lost a true plant medicine shamanic style initiations. And so most people hosting ceremonies really have no business doing it. They've done
mhm,
zero to little actual training. And so um I just encourage everyone to please ask questions, ask the practitioner what type of training they have, where they've been, how long they've been doing it, and whatever things. you think are necessary because don't take it lightly. It can be
Mhm.
one of the most powerful and beautiful and life changing things you can ever do, but it can also do harm if done wrong.
Absolutely, and I think it's a really good reminder because I think sometimes in certain spaces we can talk cavalierly about plant medicine, about ayahuasca and things like that, and yeah, one, it's not for everybody, and two, not everybody should be facilitating or practicing it, and it's really important for folks to make sure that they're in a safe space, in a safe container, and that they're going to be taken care of because they're going to be vulnerable for sure. So yeah, that's important.
Well, another real quickly, another lesson I learned was, and this is a no shit Sherlock thing, but safety is everything in a ceremony because in order to truly benefit from a plant medicine experience, you need to be able to submit and open up. And
Mhm,
it's impossible to submit and open up if you are feeling danger, right?
mhm.
And so everything is about feeling comfortable and safety safe, otherwise you can't open up. And if you can't open up, you're not going to get the types of benefits that you could truly get from this type of experience.
Wise words, Garrett. Wise words, my brother. Well, listen, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the wisdom you dropped on listeners today. And yeah, let's make this hunt happen. Let's talk off air about how to make that happen. Yeah. All right, brother.
All right.
Thank you for your time, man. We'll talk to you later. If you felt yourself somewhere in this conversation today and want to get out into the wild, come join us. We got a lot of new things coming up in the new year. We have Primal hunts October 1st and 4th and November 5th through the 8th. These are opportunities for you to deepen your work as a man, as a hunter, as a human, as an outdoorsman. They're group hunts for black bear in the Eastern Sierra of California, and we hunt deep into the wild, and you're going to be pushed to your limits. These are opportunities to learn not only how to hunt bear, how to track bear, but also how to woo the things that you want in your own life, where you're going to be surrounded by a group of brothers that will hold you in intention with the work that we will be doing over the course of those weekends. And I can promise you this: you will not come away from those weekends, from our primal hunts, unchanged. If you want more information about any of those, you can hit us up online at Step Into Your Wild or at any of the socials, right? We're also running our Backcountry Fly Fishing Academy July 9th through the 12th. This is where folks learn how to read a river, they learn how to cast a fly line, and you have an opportunity to catch a native Lahontan cutthroat trout in one of the most spectacular places on earth, and certainly in California. These are super fun trips for both men and women alike. So again, hit us up online, any of our socials, Step Into Your Wild. And then I have a few, and I mean very few spots open for 2026 individual bear hunts, individual hunting mentorships. So if you want to get out in the wild with me personally and you want to do some work hunting black bear in the wilds of the Eastern Sierra, hit me up online at Step Into Your Wild. And listen, before you do, know that these hunts aren't just for everybody. You will be pushed. They are difficult. And if you're not ready to push yourself to both your physical and sometimes emotional limits, then you're probably not ready for this trip. If you're ready for some real intimate work in the wild, hit us up. All the details are in the show notes. You can find us at www.stepintoyourwild.com or on all the socials at Step Into Your Wild. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay wild.